Welcome, everybody, to Counterclipping Show number 224 for May 26th, 2025. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Our topic tonight is the Wargamer's journey, and this is going to be sort of part personal reminiscence as well, and I'll talk about specific games, as well as sort of advice for newcomers to wargaming. So if you're brand new to wargaming, stay tuned. We are drinking Glenmore. The chair is super squeaky, folks. The other chair broke. This one's not really squeakier than the other one, but let me see if I can get it to squeak less. Looks like no. We are drinking Glenmore and Gila Santa, bottled at 40%, and it's pretty close to toast. I am looking forward to it being toast because I've had this bottle for quite some time. So we are clipping Advanced Squad Leader, brand new to the Ardwulf Lair library, however, is by Swords and Bayonets by our very own friend of the channel, Stigler, and we will be clipping that possibly next week. I really need to print out some 3D printed counter trade dividers, and I don't have the ability to do that right now. And I'll get into part of the reason why, but this situation has persisted for like a year. So it's really just an excuse. So on my part. So before we get started, I would like to remind everybody to please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already subscribed, and a big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, and in particular, new patrons. We have Adam Mack coming in at Veteran and John Griffiths at Swordsman. So thank you, John and Adam. It is much appreciated. The support is much appreciated. There is a bunch of links to support the show in the video description, so check those out if you would like to do that. You are, however, supporting the show just by being here this evening, so much appreciated. And another big shout out to our good friends at Noble Knight Games. We'll talk about this in a moment. They are the official sponsor of the Counterclipping Show, and we will be hearing from them later, but we actually have Noble Knight news too. Well, I guess I'll mention that Super Chats and Super Stickers are up, so if you want to help support the channel, get your comment highlighted, I will definitely respond to a Super Chat or a Super Sticker comment. I can get behind on the chat, as we have seen many times. So I will get to it as soon as it comes up in my display of the chat. For anyone who would like to join the Ardwulf Lair Discord community, I have thrown a link into the chat right now, and I'll have another chat. I'll have another link in a minute. I don't want to crowd the links. So, the Scotch. Okay, so John C has not had gotten his yet, but I do. So sorry, John. There's this cool new feature of StreamYard that is display the comments on screen, and they are minuscule. So we will not be using that feature. Hopefully they'll get it ironed out. In the meantime, let's say hello to Alistair Logie, Bill Simone, Bob Meyer, Chad Kennedy, Chet Bell, Chris George, Chris Yap, Christophe DeClerc, Daniel Silverthorne, Danny Secretary, Dave Poirier, David Imperato, David Zell, Dicey Dave, welcome to the show, DJ Flippy, Eric Schaefer, Gronyard Rich, somebody else just popped in, Danny Gable, welcome back, HUN644 new, the legend himself, Fucko, is here, James Whitmer, Jeff Anderson, Jeff Edwards, Joe Hammond, Joe Okabayashi, Joe Mentum, John C. from the sunny Philippines, John Clark, Lee Grant Manders, Marty Sample is here, Meandering Mike, Michael Karlowski, Michael Simon, Michael Pinka, welcome back to the show, Paul Dangle, Perry Sparopoulos, Robert Maxey, Ryan Huard, Sean Sullivan, Stacking Limit, Stigler himself is in the house, the Tabletop's Edge, Doug, thanks for stopping by, Vicky, welcome back to the show, Vince Reed, William Aarons, William Bird, William Campbell, and Winterson, and somebody else just popped in and I didn't see it, so I apologize to anyone that I have missed. In that read-off, it is, as usual, YouTube's fault. So, all right, so the first thing we're going to get to is the news. All right, so the first piece of news is that tonight's show will be an hour, and here's why. Well, I'll get to why in a second. Well, no, here's the reason why. I have house guests at the moment. There's a big family event. My wife's aunts are here in town. They are delightful, but things have been a bit crazy with house guests and other family activities, and that is why there was no chit show last night. I thought I was going to be able to make it, and I got home at 7:40. So no show last night. I apologize for that. I have already apologized to Dan. We will be back with the Chit Show next Sunday with our special guest Steve Fratt, which is already arranged. That is in fact next week. So sorry about that, but we will. And yeah, big congratulations to Stigler. I will have an unboxing video with Stigler's help sometime this week. So I'm trying a new thing with the editing. We'll see how it goes. I may talk about that next week. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, everything in By Swords and Bayonets looks fantastic, especially if you are new to GBACW, but frankly, there's battles in here that I don't have any games on and maybe aren't even aware of any games about. So although I'm told by Stigler that most of the battles have in fact been done in Wargames before. So, all right, Chris Yap, thanks for stopping by. Hopefully we'll catch you on the flip side. The recording will be available. What else is news? We got that taken care of. The Ardwulf's Lair merch store is currently disabled by me. And that is because Teespring, whatever we would like to call them, seems to not be fulfilling orders at this time. I particularly am left with my feet dangling in the air from ordering something from Seth Skorkowski, who closed his merch store. So I think the smart choice was to pull it down until we can put a merch store somewhere else, and we'll use largely the same stuff, but I haven't done that yet. So I don't have any. Lee Grant, thanks so much for the support. I believe we have heard that we know that it's coming. I would expect to see it in the next couple of months, but I don't recall. I mean, they're not going to give a specific date. They're just going to say where they are at this exact moment. But thanks, Lee, for the support. It is much appreciated. So no merch store for the moment. There's still a link in the video description. I haven't fixed that. I will have to fix that, but I have not fixed that at this time. So if anyone has any outstanding merch that has not been delivered by spring, please reach out to me. My email address is in the ticker at the bottom of the screen, and we'll figure it out. Okay, I will make it good. So how that's going to work, we will again figure it out. But I will make sure that it is taken care of. I am very annoyed. And it's not because I spent $25 on a shirt and it never showed up particularly. I don't want people trying to support the channel getting boned by the merch provider. And Teespring has had this problem before and has recovered, and maybe they'll do it again. But at this point, I've had enough problems with Teespring that I'm not going to resume business with them. So let me put it that way. So, yeah, exactly. You've already got a shirt. I gave you a shirt. You didn't even have to buy a shirt, you shiftless layabout. Anyway. All right, additional news. You may be aware that our good friends at Noble Knight Games are having their big spring sale right now. The final day for that sale will be tomorrow. Now, we do have a Noble Knight campaign going right now, which is for the Decisions revised version of War in Europe, which is currently at 61%, but I haven't had an update in a couple of weeks. I expect to have an update in the next couple of weeks. And then once this one is complete, we're going to be doing something special. Meaning we're going to campaign for something that I will then give away to the viewers of this show. And there will be an additional giveaway after Origin. So this is like a month away or so, something like 5 to 6 weeks away. I will be giving away a copy of the pretty new Forgotten Battles OCS game from MMP, because I just happen to have an extra one. So don't have an update on the Noble Knight campaign right now, but if you would like to help support the show and hurry us towards this exciting opportunity that we'll be doing next, then use the affiliate link in the video description and use that to buy stuff that you were going to buy anyway from Noble Knight, and we'll get us to that destination that much faster. So the next piece of the news is the GMT update. So let's fix this. Yeah, that's fine for now. All right. So as usual, the way we're doing this is, man, this thing is squeaky. It's super duper annoying. as usual, the way we're going to do this is I'm going to hit the highlights, and if you want to read the whole thing, by all means, hop over to gmtgames.com and look at the bottom of the page, and their newsletter for May is right there. So, this initial thing is sort of a philosophical statement from Gene about how they want to run things and treat people and all that, and philosophically, I am in full agreement with all of this. There is an update on how they are doing, given the current international landscape. And the results seem to be that, yes, they're making progress on all the action plan fronts. They have built some cash reserves because they sold a bunch of stuff. They turned 15,000 games. That's a lot of games, folks, into cash reserves since April, which sounds really good. I don't know what their typical numbers might be. This pan and scan. This sucks. This sucks. You should just get the regular presentation. Oh, very nice. Look at that. How about that? Stigler's a big star now, folks. So he will be demanding money for his autograph very soon, I'm sure. As is appropriate, and we'll talk. We'll hit the regular update. Jason Carr has the most difficult transition job right now because he is handling on the international partners. Now, where is that? All right, that's down here. We'll get to that in a moment. So they're still working on trying to develop onshore printing options, but they're not making tons of progress, but they're still working on it. So anyway. All right, Pretty Sabian says, given how long P500s take, by the time a lot of these titles actually get to the print, then this is possible, right? But then again, sometimes you end up surprised, right? Look how long it took us to get Barbarossa Army Group North 2nd Edition and South and Center, Army Group Center 2nd Edition, and South and North are both coming pretty soon, according to the list. So I will let you read this update from Kai, who's doing a bang-up job over there anyway, in all respects, and I empathize with her for having to deal with this nonsense. There's progress on the digital games front. They have sold more digital games than usual, so that's good. They describe it as a sharp uptick. Now, we will recall that there is relatively recently, GMT announced a new Australia-New Zealand friendly shipping cost calculator. And as I predicted, they ran into problems the first time, right? Because it's a completely new relationship. So this is not really GMT's fault. They're going to have to iron this out, though. And I'm positive that they will. So if you are in Australia, New Zealand, and you're waiting on stuff, this is directed at you. Digital news. There are 2 new digital games on the way that are based on GMT's analog games, one of which is Saratoga, part of the Battles of the American Revolution series by designer Mark Miklos. This is a pretty impressive series that I have not yet managed to play. Given past experience with digital adaptations of GMT products, I will pick this up, and I will almost certainly play it using the digital version, because it does not require me to set it up or tear it down or any of that. So Stigler was, of course, a big star before. I mean, this is my expectation too, ultimately, but I mean, how long is that going to take? Nobody knows. And the situation, which I'm not going to discuss in any detail, is what it is, and the businesses who are in business have to deal with those. Digital version of Saratoga from the Battles of the American Revolution series, and a digital version of Space Corp, John Butterfield's Space Corp, which I have played, and which is an excellent Euro-styled or Euro-mechanic, I guess, space sort of trading and conflict game. It's quite nice. There's an expansion for it. And I find it interesting that they mention, although it leans toward the kind of hard science that makes pop culture giants The Expanse and For All Mankind, both of which are, I haven't seen all of For All Mankind, but I have seen all The Expanse, and it's fabulous. Space Corp infuses a great deal of imaginative gameplay elements. I just think it's cool that they shouted out to The Expanse and For All Mankind, which I do think is basically a pretty cool show. I just haven't subscribed to Apple TV Plus in a long time, and am dragging my feet on that for reasons I'm not going to go into. So both of these, Yes, both of these are actually listed on Steam already, so you can wish list these. I have not yet picked up the digital version of Rebel Fury, but I do expect to. But I have played the tabletop version of Rebel Fury, and it's really good. It's really, really neat. So, all right. Beyond that, why the Logix Interactive is the people doing the Space Corp adaptation, so you can check that out. Mark Herman's Rebel Fury is live on Steam right now. Jonathan Dyer, you haven't gotten an order from January yet? I would be inquiring if it's been that long, to be honest. And of course, as we've discussed before, there's a digital version of Mr. President on the way. At the helm of that is Ananda Gupta, co-designer of Twilight Struggle, among other things. And I expect this to be an excellent digital adaptation of a game that is extremely well suited to digital adaptation. There is a new product available from the GMT site from Hexasim. It is the Caporetto campaign 1917. And this is a solitaire design by our good friend Herman Luttman. So Herman strikes again. I'm sure this is going to be good, just like everything else I've seen from Herman has been. So, the morning show is not something I am by disposition interested in. I have no doubt that it is good. In fact, the original programming from Apple TV Plus tends to be pretty well regarded, and the stuff I've bitched about Foundation. But Ted Lasso is good. That's not necessarily something I would necessarily jump at either, to be completely honest about it. I would think so, but the coin game. So Brant says that Brant, thanks for coming. Given that they already have bots in the coin games, you'd think those would be naturals for early adaptation to a digital format. And I agree, but there are kind of a lot of moving pieces in coin games too. And maybe that's why that hasn't happened yet. I do agree with everything that Brant just said, and will be interested if they should do digital adaptations of any coin games. Maltov Cockatiel says that Mythic Quest is his favorite Apple TV show. So this, I've actually seen a couple episodes of this. It is about a video game company. It's got F. Murray Abraham in it, who's always fantastic. It's a pretty good show, but I haven't seen the whole thing. Severance, I haven't seen at all. So, Paulson, thanks for stopping by, late or not. All right, so we have more games from European and maybe other international publishers coming soon, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. I'm very interested to see that. I'd love to see an easier way to get some games from European publishers in particular, but also Asian publishers. There's some really interesting things getting published in Asia, and I'd love to have better availability on that. And Noble Knight is really good at stock and stuff from European publishers. Asian publishers is very hit and miss. We have much less visibility on that stuff. This reminds me to interrupt the GMT update to throw in a link to the ballot for the Charles S. Roberts Awards for 2024. If anybody hasn't voted yet, feel free to go vote. You can, again, as usual, abstain on any questions you don't feel qualified to answer. So, and then back to GMT, we have a counter issue update for the Battle for Normandy. So they have identified all of the stuff that are problem counters, and there's a PDF of the corrected. Well, it's a PDF description of the counter errata. So this is useful. More useful still, and I'm sure this will happen, is replacement counters for all of that stuff. So their next step will be to get a final counter layout to send to the printer, probably in June, and get the errata counters reprinted so that they can send replacements out. That is fabulous, and that is what I assumed GMT would do. GMT will be at Origins doing a bunch of stuff. The GMT will not have a booth as GMT Games at Origins. If you want to buy GMT product at Origins, go to Enterprise Games. They will be in the dealer's room, and they are the official representative of GMT at Origins. But in addition to that, Jason Carr will be out there, and there's a whole bunch of different, they didn't list them this time. There's a whole bunch of different GMT games that are going to get played at Origins, one of which is Congress of Vienna, run by me. No idea what the ticket sales on that are or not. All I've done so far is to log in, make sure the badge is okay, and that's about it. So Greyhound I have also seen. It is excellent and relevant to our interests here. All right, GMT Talk, their podcast. They're talking to Ed Ostermeyer and a whole bunch of other people who we've covered before. Not there yet, P500 items. If you're interested in any of this, I would say you should probably P500 it. You can always back it off later if you just change your mind. A brand new game in the leading American Civil War tactical system. That's, you know what? It's the leading Civil War tactical system to me. But there's a couple close competitors here. Blind Swords is doing really good work. And, very nice. Mike Berticelli says that another game at Origins will be Microverse. Mike, I think it was you that convinced me to play Microverse at SD Hist, and it was a great experience. I think it's going to be a very strong game. I think it's going to perform very well for GMT. Yes, I guess there's player rate issues as well. So let's, again, I have confidence that GMT will unfuck this situation. So, I mean, I agree with this too, Brant. I do not have a better answer than I have already given. So if you are interested in Civil War and Civil War at the tactical level, I would strongly recommend taking a close look at By Swords and Bayonets, which is a great entry point, as we'll discuss in the video later. Not this video, but the unboxing video with Stigler that we'll have out hopefully sometime later this week. And you should take a look at this. It's a great entry point to that system. All right, back of the box sneak peek. Plum Island Horror. Herman had so Herman Lettman designed, this is an expansion for the Plum Island Horror, More of a Bad Thing, and that was a huge hit, sold out very quickly. So if you're a fan of it, you should hop on this as well. All right, here's some Vassal updates that I'm not going to go through. Go ahead and check them out if you want. I did. Lion of the North, though, got updated, which is kind of incredible considering how old that is, and how kind of sidelined by GBOH Lion of the North specifically has been, or sidelined by other series that kind of took its role, and as opposed to handling that in GBOH, I should say. It sounds like they sent the wrong files to the printer, to be completely honest. But I'm not positive I recall that they actually said that. All right. So here's guest of honor Mark Herman at the recent Ergo Ludo GMT convention in Italy. And there's Mark right there. Awesome. All right, designer interviews include Ed Ostermeyer from GMT Talk, Beyond Solitaire. Liz is doing a great job as well. Congratulations once again to Liz for winning the BGG Award for Best Podcast. Jason Matthews and Mark Herman are over there. The War Room has talked to Gene Billingsley and Mark. Zilla Blitz, who just hit 20,000 subscribers, so big congrats to Zilla for doing that, and he's a great guy too. Talked to Volko Runke. No Dice, No Glory talked to Stephen Rangazas and Non-Breaking Space, co-designers of Combat Commander Vietnam. Very interested in hearing that interview, even if I'm not a huge fan of Combat Commander. And frankly, I would like to try it for Vietnam. I think that system might work better for me for Vietnam than it did for World War II. All right, so P500 editions, Königgrätz 66, and a second printing of Congress of Vienna. So let's have a look at Königgrätz 66. This is from the Austro-Prussian War and Battle of Königgrätz, and it looks very promising, actually. Designed by Mark Simonich. I don't know that Mark Simonich has done anything like this before in this conflict, so super interested in seeing this. Just based on the pedigree of the designer. Grand Tactical, it's kind of what it looks like. So I'm real curious to see this. I've never seen a tactical game or even Grand Tactical from Simonich, so I'm very curious. So Brandt has provided us with some details here for GMT stuff that will be happening at Origins, including Twilight Struggle, Plum Island Horror, Red Dust Rebellion, In the Shadows, Microverse, Holland 44, Commands and Colors Ancients, Combat Commander Europe, Congress of Vienna, and Just of Robin Hood. I'm pretty sure you did miss a couple there. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a tactical Vietnam game. I have an at least one operational Vietnam games. But I would be interested in a tactical Vietnam game. It could be very interesting. I don't know. Will this have Zachbons in it? I mean, it might. I wouldn't be stunned by that. I don't know that I noticed that in the actual description, however. as James Whitmer says, but I see no particular reason why it couldn't. So I'm real curious to see it. So back to the update. All right. So we talked about that new edition of Congress of Vienna, which is apparently gone already, which is really fast. Wargame Ramble, welcome back. Thanks for stopping by. Purple Haze, which has been very well received, which I have not played, but I saw on tables at SD Hist. And I am positive I've seen it at least one or two other conventions too. So there's that. This is true. Yeah, this is just stuff with the Wargame HQ rather than necessarily absolutely everything. So P500 removals. Based on a request from John Krantz, they have removed Bearclaw from the P500 list this month. They hope that it finds a good home and will update us if and when that happens. I don't know. But I'd be very curious. So here's the teasers for stuff that's coming. We actually got that this time, since things are looking less dire than last month. A long-awaited game from Jerry White. If this is a new entry in the Enemy Coast Ahead series, I will almost certainly buy that. An Old West-themed strategy game from Ben Knight, who's doing a lot of work right now. Interested in that, but I don't know anything about it other than what we see here. Another new Combat Commander product, which is great for the fans of Cardboard Commander, and a World War I battle game from our friend Herman Lutman, which will be definitely worth a look. Probably definitely worth a look. Sounds like I'm hedging. I'm not actually attempting to hedge. HUN644 News says the Jerry White game is probably Pacific Chase. I might be interested in that too. But I would absolutely 100% jump on a new Enemy Coast Ahead game. And I do know that Jerry is working on Pacific Chase. So, and he has demoed it at a couple of events so far. Starting in a few short days, there's a GBACW event in Fredericksburg, Virginia, May 30th through June 8th. At the Comfort Suites South Point in Fredericksburg, Virginia. There'll be a who's who of GBACW designers, including Al Smith. They'll be demoing or showing off Stepping into Hell, which is the GBACW game on the Battle of the Wilderness, which I'm very much looking forward to. And it's a big monster gaming type of deal, so not necessarily appropriate for brand new wargamers, but then again, I bet by Swords and Bayonets will get thrown down on a table too, so... I'm not sure what the number was for Bearclaw, to be completely honest. Where that was at. I do seem to remember that it was languishing, but I'm not checking it now. All right, SD Hist Con, Summer 2025. This is coming up pretty soon, too, on June 7th. This is an online convention because the spring thing at the Naval War College Museum couldn't happen this year. There's going to be some GNT seminars, and these events, the amount of money they cost is trivial. These events are worth doing if you want to hear from designers or maybe try some of these interesting looking new games. I'm more of an apple fritter guy than a Bearclaw guy. Personally, I don't like artificial almond flavor. It is weird to me. All right. This is Alcala CVF25, a wargaming convention in Spain, June 6th through the 8th. I wish the best to anyone attending this event. It probably will be awesome, and I will look forward to seeing pictures of it from the comfort of my office. So, oh, nice. Mike is working on a Combat Commander project that they'll be able to announce soon. Big news on the Combat Commander front. That is fantastic. Surugaya, sorry for that. Welcome to the show. Living in Japan, there are no gaming events. I don't know if there. I have no idea. I would imagine that there are, but I cannot provide guidance on this question either. So, apparently there's a Japanese magazine version of Bearclaw, so you can rustle the game up, even though you may not be able to get the one from GMT. And the other thing, of course, here is that you folks in Japan still have Command Magazine that's like still around and being published. So, you win some, you lose some. But someday come out to Origins. Possibly not this year, coming from Japan. All right, there is a Twilight Struggle convention in the heart of Basque Country in Victoria-Gasteiz. I have no idea whether I've pronounced that correctly or not. So check that out. That is June 14th and 15th. There's the GMT Fall Weekend at the Warehouse, October 16th through the 19th, out in Hanford, California. And there's Bathos Con 2025, which is in November in New Westminster, British Columbia. So Canadian folks should take a look at that. So, all right. Let's see what else we got. Here's some Nerd Workshop, who has a YouTube channel that if you have a 3D printer, you should probably be following, because he's got some very good videos on doing 3D printed stuff for wargaming, which I never managed to get accomplished. And there's some 3D printed files. So there's some 3D printing model files that you can download for a couple different things, including Wolfpack, the new Fighting Formations game, and the last two Last 100 Yards volumes. Rally the Troops, you can play a bunch of GMT stuff as among other folks' games there. Some stuff on Jest of Robin Hood from Watch It Played. Here's the throws from Kai. Kai, I haven't managed to order one yet. I'm sorry. There's an online support site for Fields of Fire if you're one of the many folks who have trouble with the game, figuring the game out. And there's a bunch of stuff that you can download here that will help you get started with that game. So... this sounds like a fabulous idea. Alan Salazar, welcome back. And oh, shit, I meant to put this in the notes. It is Memorial Day, folks, so let's take the proper moment to solemnly recognize the folks who gave everything for the United States. So, yeah, he does... I mean, I've seen the videos. He does good work. And I'd be curious to look at these files, too, to be completely honest. All right, where were we here? All right, so current charging and shipping. They started shipping on May 6th for the following things. American Revolution Tri-Pack number 2, which I had to back off the order on. Buy Swords and Bayonets, which I sucked it up and ordered anyway. Panzer Expansion number 4, France 1940 second printing. The Bell of Treason, which is Czechoslovakia 38. And Last 100 Yards 5 for King and Country. And as I can... this is a good question. I'd have to look into this. I haven't really looked at the Solar System add-ons, but maybe Stuka Joe can tell us if he's here tonight. Yeah, well, if you can resin print your miniatures, you will probably get pretty good results if you are assuming your printer's working right. If you are printing on a filament printer, less so. Filament printers are fine for things like terrain and stuff like that. All right, so the next charge and shipment. They're going to do a split with international orders shipping directly from the printer. So if you're not in the United States, that will affect you. And charging a couple weeks sooner than U.S. orders. So bear that in mind as well. They're aiming for mid-June to get these items charging. Barbarossa Army Group North 2nd Edition. Thank you, GMT. I've been waiting ages for this. A giant pile of Space Empires stuff, including All Good Things, the latest and last expansion, which I have ordered. Talon 3rd printing, which can be incorporated into Space Empires if you want. And counter trays, which apparently don't get a tariff surcharge. I don't know where those are actually manufactured. I may have made an assumption that they were made in China, and maybe that's not the correct description. Okay, so there we go. Joe, thanks for stopping by, and thanks for clarifying this question. Oh, that's nice. Manders attended the annual observance of Memorial Day at Antietam Cemetery this morning. That would be something to go to, I'll tell you what. So, there's tariff surcharges on all this stuff. I think the highest one is for Space Empires All Good Things of $3.38, and nobody's probably going to die from that. Although it's annoying, but again, the situation is what it is. Rob Johnson says that it's 7 pounds, which is pretty heavy. All right, so onward, production is back in action as of last week. Stalingrad 42 with the little Saturn expansion and Unconditional Surrender Western campaigns are both going to print with several other titles. There are 11 games plus counter trays coming out of the factory ready to receive this new shipping model. And then there's another batch behind that of 3 more games, so they hope to have all of the hiccups worked out by then, which would be great. Oddly enough, GMT is having trouble getting... just a moment, folks. All right, we had a slight interruption, folks. Sorry about that. Stacking Limit went to Arlington Cemetery this morning. That's another one that would be something to be at. And is GMT selling flashy, glossy versions of those Congress editions? That I don't know. I would have to look at. This was wife bringing me dinner, which I didn't get to go to because of the show. So, and that is the reason why we'll be having an slightly abbreviated show tonight. That's not a permanent thing. It's just tonight. But at least in this case, I planned it. So that's good. Stigler, be careful. Be careful, Stigler. I'm just saying. All right. In addition to the stuff we've already talked about at the printer, but there is no ship date yet, include China's War, coin game from Brian Train, Combat Commander Battle Pack number 8, Minor Nations, the Europe and Med combined version, the Mediterranean third printing, and Resistance second printing, plus Cross Bronx Expressway, which looks very interesting. Hubris from Morgan Gouton Reti. I hope I haven't ruined Morgan's name. That looks super interesting as well. It's about the successors to Alexander's Empire, Italy 43, Stalingrad 42 second edition, and Unconditional Surrender Western campaigns. I'm not going to talk about the things that didn't update this update. So there's a bunch of additional stuff, and they're saying in final art or proofing for June or July includes 1833 NE and 18XX rail game, Ardennes 44 fourth printing and mounted maps for that, CNC Napoleonics expansion number 7, Grand Battles, Firefight, the other stuff that hasn't moved up. Now, Q3 2025 tentative. The things that have moved up into this category include Decisive Action, which is a good news. Fields of Fire Volume 3, the Parachute Regiment. North Africa 40 from Mark Simonich. That is an expansion for North Africa 41. The British Way, which is an expansion for the British Way, which is a kind of a coin multi-pack already, and this will just add to that. 3 Days of Gettysburg Deluxe, and I will point out that Thunderbolt is in this group as well, although it hasn't changed in the last month. Also getting moved into possible Q4 2025 releases include a fourth printing of A Distant Plane, a brand new edition of the classic A House Divided from Frank Chadwick, which Carl Crater, our buddy, is doing the development on. Barbarossa Army Group South, second edition, has moved up into this batch, which is great news. Combat Commander, Battle Pack number 9, Island Hopping, a second printing of I, Napoleon, plus the I, Napoleon expansion. Another expansion for Labyrinth, The Rise of Al-Qaeda, Lenin's Legacy, which looks interesting, Resisting Revolution, and expansion for Cuba Libre, Battle of Cowpens, and The Pure Land, which is set in Japan, as I recall. I saw these somewhere, and they look great, but I expect them to look great at this point, to be completely honest. 2026, Echo from the Dark and Hammer and Sickle. And this is early 2026, and then later in 2026 and beyond includes a giant pile of stuff. 1867 Big Wyoming, I assume that's another 18XX game, as well as 18 EUS, which definitely is. A Fading Star, Mark Herman's Army of the Potomac, Away Team from John Butterfield, which a lot of folks have been looking forward to. Caesar Rome versus Gaul, plus the update kit for that, second printing. Combat Commander Vietnam, Epipoli, which is the first Levian campaign Ancients game, Ermine, which is another medieval Levian campaign game, Founders of Ravik, which I believe is a Richard Garfield design. Is this Richard Garfield, or am I thinking of somebody else? It is I think this is Richard Garfield. I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about that. Imperial Fever, Iron Storm, Microverse, which again I've played at SD Hist, and it's pretty good. I think it's going to be a big hit. Musket and Pike Dual Pack number 2. Second edition of Nevsky, plus an update kit for owners of the previous edition, like myself. Next War Supplement number 4, Order and Opportunity, Vezarponen's game that looks very interesting. Rebellion Britannia, Solitaire TAC Ops Artona. Stepping into Hell is, again, the GBACW Wilderness game. The Battle for Sicily from the designer of Battle for Normandy. I've been waiting for this for a very long time, too. Apparently, I'm right about Richard Garfield. Richard Garfield is the designer, among other things, of Magic the Gathering. So, Where did we leave off? The Battle of Green Spring, which is Battles for the American Revolution. Thunder on the Baltic, Time of Crisis Deluxe, an update kit for that. Triumvir, which I'm also looking forward to. That's Mark Herman and Jeff Engelstein, if I'm not mistaken. Twilight Struggle, South Asian Monsoon, based on a conversation I had with Jason Carr. That looks pretty interesting, too. Wings for the Baron, which I think I slept on when it was originally released, but I am definitely interested in GMT's version, and Zizka. What else do we got? Check out these fine YouTube channels. And then we have, let's zoom out a little bit for the pictures of the bling. So this is More of a Bad Thing, the expansion for the Plum Island Horror. It is a pretty cool cover. Here's the cover for Italy 43. This looks good. The game looks good. The cover looks good. Thumbs up from me. The Guerrilla Generation, which is another coin multi-pack. Near final map snippets for the Pure Land. I like the art style here. I have no idea how the game's going to play. Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure I knew that Richard Garfield designed this, to be completely honest. I played the original Netrunner CCG back in the day a little bit, but only a little bit. I thought that of the CCGs that Wizards of the Coast did, between the original Netrunner, this is a new edition or version of that game. Vampire the Eternal Struggle was the more interesting game for me, but that's just me. All right, more Pure Land. Again, this looks terrific. Here are some mini maps from 3 Days of Gettysburg Deluxe Edition. So let's paw through these real quick. Where are we here? Okay. All right, well, I guess we're not zooming into those, but from here, they look great. Surugaya says Keyforge was also pretty interesting and innovative. I have not looked at that at all. So, yeah, these look fantastic. And Three Dog really needed some small scenarios, so I'm very happy about this. Maps, I would imagine, Stigler can correct me, I would imagine the maps are Charlie Kibler. Charlie's one of my favorite wargaming map artists anyway. I have played Robo Rally. I got a little dizzy, to be honest. But once you get the hang of it, Robo Rally is actually pretty cool and quite clever. What else do we got? Pictures of here. Here is a picture of, looks like Tac Ops or Solitaire Tac Ops Ortona. And here's the reprint tracking. You can look at this if you want. All right, so that is the GMT update. So let us pull this down for the moment and put this back. Yeah, okay, there we go. So, original Netrunner. I didn't play that much of it. It was just one of those things. There was a couple games that I wanted to play more of, including this and Dune, that was done by Last Unicorn, which had gorgeous Mark Zug art. But I did not get to play very much of either of those things. In fact, I think Dune, I never even got an actual starter deck. So, oh yeah, I want to actually look. Well, I have not watched the video yet. I actually want to see this too, because I think Red Sash Games is doing some interesting things, and I'd like to know more about what's going on over there. All right, so let us use that opportunity to, because we're having an abbreviated show here tonight, folks, we are now going to hear from our good friends at Noble Knight Games. So take it away, Noble Knight.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, so big shout out and thanks to Noble Knight, and don't forget about the affiliate link in the video description. It does help the channel out a lot, and in fact, it's a major avenue right now for how I can get new games in here. Red Sash Games is still around. They are their website. I will concur with Brant that Red Sash website needs some work by someone working today and not in 1993. So there's that. Chris K, thanks for stopping by. I have not watched this either. I do want to see this though. My understanding is it's pretty much a new design, but I'm not 100% on that. So we will see. Sean Sullivan picked up some Red Sash games off of Noble Knight. So what got me in? Well, okay, so we've got 15 minutes here, folks. So, I mean, if I run a couple minutes over, it's cool. As we might recall from previous shows, my first war game was this, Paratroop, released in 1979, but I find it's a little hard to reconstruct a timeline this long ago, right? Because bear in mind, this is friggin' 46 years ago, okay? So I don't feel like I can reliably reconstruct my early gaming timeline with any enormous degree of accuracy. Yes, that is correct. Red Sash games are available through Blue Panther. And as far as I'm aware, they do their stuff exclusively print on demand through Blue Panther. So this is a really interesting game. This showed up in S&T number 78, 77, 77. And this was part of that like subscription I got through Science News magazine back in the day. This and the next game, The China War. I remember having and playing both of these games back in what I believe to have been 1980 or 1981. So DJ Flippy says the Red Sash Games website is run by a Jack Russell Terrier. Pretty Albion thinks it was a flyer out of monthly issue of War Monthly or Scientific American for SPI War Games. Yeah, I saw it in Science News. So here's the takeaway from Paratroop. This is a pretty interesting game that I've since reacquired and intend to take a look at whenever I get the chance. And we've got some wonderful creative credits here from John Butterfield and Jim Dunnigan and our very own Joe Perez. So Joe, you have participated in my entry into the wargaming field 46 years ago or so. So there's Ibn Emel, there's Crete, and there's Arnhem in this game. And to be completely frank, the only one of the three that I remember playing is Ibn Emel, which obviously at age of approximately 10, I didn't know anything about at the time. I think I was attracted, but I mean, I was like reading history stuff that early, right? And we're mostly World War II, in fact. I did not start with Fortress America, and in fact, of the Game Master Series games that I've played, it is my least favorite. I thought that Shogun was my favorite, but for the record. But those games are actually pretty good entryways into wargaming. Any of those old Milton Bradley Game Master Series games. Those were the best known of which is Axis and Allies because it's still around. We also had Shogun, we had Conquest of the Empire, we had Broadsides and Boarding Parties, we had Fortress America, and am I forgetting one? The only one I didn't like that I played was Fortress America, and that could be why I played it because I played it decades later. Whereas I didn't play Broadsides and Boarding Parties at all, but I liked Conquest of the Empire. I liked Axis and Allies at the time. And it's I haven't played it since then, so it's presumably has changed or evolved to some degree in the current versions. And I liked Shogun the best, and it was the one that I played the most. All three of those games do have some resemblance to Risk. But Risk, I had played Risk long before I'd played any of the Game Master series. So that's another like entry point into wargaming. But Risk specifically does not sort of come with history. Right. Risk is this kind of new. So the original was Shogun, and then I believe they ran into problems with the James Clavell people, and they renamed it Samurai Swords, and the more recent versions, which are relatively recent, are called Ikoru or something like that. I'm not sure why they didn't call it Yamato. That might not be appropriate, but that would have been, I think, a name more people would have recognized, but then people might have thought it was about the battleship, so there's that. Oh, nice. Well, Wargamer Ramble still has original copy of Conquest of the Empire purchased from Toys R Us. In truth, I think this is true, but I'm not sure we're going to get to this tonight. I think we're going to get to... I've kind of separated my wargaming life into three general periods. One, when I was like really a kid, right? Maybe not even a teenager yet, and was conducting these kind of exploratory things about of things that look neat. And I didn't have anybody to play this stuff with. Conquest of the Empire and Axis and Allies, I could talk people, like friends, into playing. I didn't have anybody to play this stuff with but my dad. And I am positive that we did not play it correctly. Wooden Ships and Iron Men is a fabulous game. So, okay. Even Emil Brook, Joe Perez's heart. He wanted it to be a squad leader ripoff, but Dunnigan told him to make it fit in a folio. So there's that. Wooden Ships and Iron Men is a fabulous game that I think holds up pretty well today. But the other two, again, I've recently not that recently. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago now. I have reacquired Paratroop, and when the time comes, I will do video on it. Now, the China War, I remember pretty clearly, but I think there was some noodling done with it in an incompetent way. But I don't really remember the gameplay at all. This is one that I have, again, reacquired. This was one that I think kind of stumbled its way into my library, again, by accident. It was like in with some other stuff or something like that. This also, for those who are of sufficient vintage to remember the American Heritage series games from Milton Bradley, I think if you are of that particular generation, I think there's a decent chance that this brought you into wargaming. This is another one that's fairly interesting, right? It's another of SPI's trademark near future conflict that hadn't actually happened yet and never did happen. But this is the Soviets and the Chinese going at each other in the 80s, and I think that is potentially interesting. Now, this may have been, yes, indeed it was, the map that was where they created the mountains, and I believe this was a Redmond-Simonson experiment, by crinkling up brown paper shopping bags, as you can see from the map. It is not an artistic choice that I think worked, but I respect the genius of Redmond-Simonson nonetheless. The paper bag mountains, yeah, no kidding. Neither of these games are regarded as timeless classics. Neither Paratroop nor the China War. And I think there must have been a third game as well, but I didn't look it up because I have no clear recollection of a third game arriving. Now, another SPI game that I did play probably a couple of years later was something that I got on a trade. The Star Force Trilogy. Now, this consists of 3 games, Star Force, Star Soldier, and Outreach. And I played all 3. Of the 3, Star Soldier is my least favorite. I think it didn't, to me, at the time, it didn't compare particularly well to Starship Troopers. And Star Force was neat, but not necessarily like a load of fun to play. It is a clever idea, and I do not begrudge the SPI graphics people for that experiment, but I don't think it worked either. I wasn't a huge fan of Star Soldier. Again, I got Starship Troopers around the same time. This would have been in there maybe as late as 84, maybe 85, I guess. Outreach is a fabulous and unique game, however, that I have reacquired, as well as Star Soldier. I don't have, I have reacquired Outreach and Star Force. I have never bothered to reacquire Star Soldier. Now, if some divine intervention happens and I stumble across a soapbox Star Force trilogy, you'll be the first to know. But that's probably the only scenario in which I will again receive a copy of Star Soldier. But this is a pretty interesting game. The 3 games are sort of tied together in this very loose science fictional universe. Of those, you get the most background, a couple of pages of science fiction background, and it's very cleverly developed science fiction background. Then that shows up in Star Force. And then Outreach happens 800 years later or something like that. A classic bunch of games. Star Force is really clever and neat. It does use plotted simultaneous movement, which a lot of people don't like, and which I was not crazy about at the time. It also is a fully 3-dimensional space combat game. So you will have, there are aids in the game to help you with this, but you might find yourself having to do trigonometry to play it. So there's that. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but it is a full 3D space. And the map, do we have a picture of the map here? Let me look at Star Force, because this map is actually really neat. This is, we have a good picture of the map. Not really. All right, we'll go with this one. So this is, state of the art 1979. When did this come out? 74. Okay, so it's even earlier than that. Of the actual the stars nearest to our sun. And it's pretty in 3D, no less, and it's pretty cool. I do think this was surpassed in sort of neatness factor by the similar map with a decent number more stars on it that showed up in GDW's Twilight Traveler 2300 and then later 2300 AD. But this is a pretty cool map. And again, the game is cool too. It's just that a lot of people might not consider it super duper fun. Now, I would say that the game that ended this phase of me as a wargamer is Squad Leader. And I think this is sort of the entry. And I expect I'm not alone in experiencing this trajectory in this way. Robert Maxey mentions Battle Cry from Milton Bradley. That was part of the American Heritage series. Published in 61. And a lot of people came into wargaming via those games back in the day. Bear in mind that there were, as far as I know, commercially, the only other wargamey things you could get would be the relatively few Avalon Hill titles that were out by then, which is maybe 3 games. This is a good point. So the Universe RPG also came with a 3D star map. That is true. I'd have to check. It might even be the same map. So that's worth looking at. David Imperato building military models, which I also did as a kid. I was more into aircraft carriers and battleships and jet aircraft when I was in my model building days, which were a long time ago. And then Frank Davis, thanks for stopping by. His first war game was an ACW game that appeared in Look magazine around 1963. I would be very interested in seeing this just out of sheer curiosity. And of course, we have our traditional, I'm going to seriously consider stopping publishing these things on Twitch if we're going to get these Nimrods going into Twitch and dropping bullshit links in the chat. So Joe Green says it's a much better map. I'd have to check. I do have Universe as well as Star Trader. And it's an interesting game that I think one can draw interesting ideas from. Let me put it that way. Perfidious Albion was heavily into the monogram tanks back in the mid-70s. So Squad Leader for me was like a sea change in terms of how I saw wargaming. For one thing, it was tactical, and I had not played a game that I would describe as tactical up to that point. Maybe you could say Paratroop was, but that was like the first thing, and I didn't really know what I was doing, right? Whereas by the time I picked up Squad Leader, and again, this would have been in 83, something like that, I was at least somewhat aware of, what war games were and what you could possibly do with war games. But then you get Squad Leader and you open it up and you think, whoa, look at this. It is also an order of magnitude more complicated than any of the previous games that I've played up to that point. And although I don't necessarily think that the original Squad Leader is I don't think we would consider it as complicated today as folks did back then, but that's true of a lot of Avalon Hill games in particular from this period. Third Reich's the same way. It was considered like the pinnacle of complexity at the time. Now it's just considered, it's kind of complicated, right? At least to me. Nowadays, you can go to ASL Starter Kit instead of going back to the original Squad Leader, and I do think that is a viable option. And if you want, you can stick with Starter Kit. There's plenty of Starter Kit material now. Stratego. I did play Stratego as a kid, and it's interesting. It's not like Risk, although it has this very, very thin veneer of historical theme on it. It doesn't really come with any history, right? and therefore, to me, this same logic, by the way, would apply to like Tactics 1, Tactics 2, Blitzkrieg, stuff like that, or Victory from Columbia Games, where it doesn't really come with the history, and therefore it was less interesting to me once I started experiencing games that have the history. And I guess since, again, we are doing an abbreviated show this evening that is nevertheless going to run at least a couple of minutes over, I will... Oh, yeah, I guess Ad Astra Games is having some problems right now with PayPal, so buy some Ad Astra Games if you're interested in their stuff at all. Situation 4, I am entirely unfamiliar with. Professor Albion says the major appeal with Squad Leader when he first opened it was the sandbox potential of the design. And yes, it includes, it's, although there are a limited number of scenarios in the box, 10 as I recall, and they're a programmed instruction type of thing, so you may or may not want to ever replay some of the earlier scenarios as you add more and more rules to your Squad Leader experience. There was a design your own scenario thing in it, right? And you could, and we did that back in the day because I never had Cross of Iron or GI Anvil of Victory or Crescendo of Doom. So when we played Squad Leader back in the 80s, we were generally playing it with the build your own scenario stuff. So, this is a bit facile, Carl. I'm not sure you're wrong though. So, this statement probably requires a little deeper thought than I'm willing to commit to at this time. And yeah, I've played, what was the companion scenario to the Tractor Works? I played both of those a lot. So back in the day. And Squad Leader is actually, might also, and of course, this is the first time I'd ever, is it the first time I'd ever seen programmed instruction? I am not positive, I think it was. The probably the next example of programmed instruction that I saw, and it's not exactly the same type of thing, was probably in the Mensner D&D Basics set, which I had already moved beyond by that point, but for some reason I got. And it had something kind of similar where it kind of walked you through how to play D&D, right? I mean, you know what? Not every game is going to work for everybody. This is okay. Starship Troopers did. I didn't have Starship Troopers until a little bit later, though, which makes me think that I must have gotten the Star Force trilogy a couple years earlier. But Mike is right. That did also have Guards Counterattack. That was the other scenario. And you could combine the two and get a very meaty Squad Leader experience that would take you quite a while to play, even though I think it was only on 2 map boards at the time. So, and those scenarios in particular, and a lot of the other classic Squad Leader scenarios, if not all of them, have been redone for ASL. So I would love to see an adaptation, and maybe they've done this, an adaptation to ASL starter kit of those 2 scenarios. I think that could be pretty fun. Tobruk, I have to this day not played. So there's that. So I guess our takeaway from this summary of my own experiences as a preteen and very early teenage wargamer up to maybe age 15 or so. I think by the time I hit the sophomore year in high school, I was, in practical terms, playing more role-playing games than war games. Although we still did war games every once in a while, and Broadside and Dogfight were 2 more mentioned by John C. of the American Heritage Series games. I have seen those games because I've haunted Origins auctions for a decade, but I've never played a single one of those. There's this problem as well. The buckets of dice thing doesn't really bother me, but the rolling for absolutely everything can become tiring in certain games. I will agree to that. But there are also games where you roll for a lot of stuff that I still like the game, like GTS. You roll and dice a lot in GTS. The same thing is true in GCACW, for that matter. The squeaky chair is extremely annoying, and if it comes to that, I will do next week's show from a folding chair, which will not squeak. I will be goddamn uncomfortable in it. But the chair that busted was actually the old chair. I got a new chair. The new chair, this was like 3 years ago. The new chair busted, and I went back to the old chair, and the old chair finally, I mean, it was kind of busted before, and now it's totally busted and totally unusable. So there's that. A lot of dogfight veterans. Yeah, that's true. And I don't mean to poo-poo Tobruk, because a lot of people had formative experiences with games like Tobruk or Richthofen's War or Luftwaffe or even Guns of August. And I've got like a phase 2, which we might do if we have a part 2 of this series, which I think we're going to do. But my advice for somebody getting into war games is to think carefully about what it is you're interested in, right? What specific topics or scales or designers maybe that you're interested in exploring that stuff. Interest in the topic is always going to trump all other things being equal, and of course they usually aren't, the complexity of the game. So don't be scared. I mean, there are games I won't recommend to new people just because it's like, wow, this is really complicated. Like Goss. I'm not going to point new people at Goss. That would be crazy and perverse and potentially cruel. And I like Goss, but these are not games, or even ASL, right? If you are interested in World War II at a tactical level, but you're a new war gamer, I would end up pointing folks to something like Last 100 Yards, or Lock and Load Tactical, or Old School Tactical, or something like that. And then maybe at some point, if they decide they want more, they can step up to ASL if they want, but they are not obligated to do so. They may decide to explore other things. And that's another thing, is don't be afraid to explore new topics. Now, everybody's got like bandwidth limitations, right? So you can't play everything. Nobody can play everything. And I guess we'll leave off with this. Pretty Sabian says that the thing that sold him on GMT games 30 years ago or so was GBOH with SPQR. I believe that the game that sold me on GMT games more than anything else, I probably will need to list a couple, would be Typhoon, for one. A pretty cool game and the predecessor of the Barbarossa East Front series. And Rise of the Roman Republic, which is volume 1 of the Ancient World. Now, I think both of these were in the early 90s, so they're kind of out of scope of this. You know what, though? If you just buy... When I played it, which was years ago and before they put out that giant compiled rule book, it was a very manageable rule book. So I'm not positive that Lock and Load Tactical is necessarily a good option now, but there were plenty of options in the World War II tactical space. So I think Stacking Limit may have a point here. I'd have to look into it. Paths of Glory. Yeah, that's way later than me. Another game that I always wanted to get into, but didn't pick up until I got back into wargaming years later, was Here I Stand, actually. That was pretty cool. Oh, and Dead of Winter. Stigler, was this the GMT? I guess it is the GMT Dead of Winter at this point. Because Dead of Winter appeared from Simulations Design previously as a Richard Berg self-publication type of deal. Yeah, and this is why I was all over Carthage when it came out. I'm like, well, this is the first Punic War. What about the second Punic War that everybody wants? And that we're getting in 2025. We hope. So, all right. So I do want to thank everybody for showing up for this slightly abbreviated show tonight. And it is abbreviated because we have house guests. And again, And again, they are a delight, but there's a bunch of time constraints that are imposed upon me this evening. Mo has arrived exactly in time for the show to end. Mo, thanks for coming. See ya. But we should have a video later this week. We'll target Thursday, but it might be Friday, maybe even Saturday, for the unboxing assisted by the designer of My Swords and Bayonets, which looks amazing. And hopefully we'll have some more stuff. And there will be a sale video from me pretty soon, too. So Dan's going to do another sale on the Chit Show. It's not going to be this week, but it probably won't be much longer than that. I will probably not. I'll probably do my own video so I don't burden Dan with my stuff. So I could do that. I could, in fact, drag them down here and duct tape them to the gaming table and bust out Case Blue. I could do that. So they are lovely ladies, and I love them. But they're here, so we're taking a bit of a siesta tonight. We'll be back next week with a regular show. And of course, I will point out that the show that will occur on June 16th, on Monday, June 16th, will be the Origins preview show. So stay tuned for that as well. Once again, everybody have a great night. Like the video if you haven't done so. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. There's a bunch of ways to support the channel in the video description. And check out the Noble Knight affiliate link while the sale is still going. It's going to end tomorrow. So if we're going to order stuff from Noble Knight, now is the time. And to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and encouragement, we could not continue doing this. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great rest of the night. We'll see you all again soon.